everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United transfer news as we approach a big, massive transfer window for Manchester United. Tonight we'll be talking about De Jong decision time. Expected big news in the next 24 hours around that. Also the latest on Timber to Manchester United and why a deal with Manchester United and Ajax may well be very imminent indeed. We'll also be talking about a bit of a breaking news story that we got this afternoon, exclusively actually, in relation to a striker. And also I want to delve into your thoughts and the story around Manchester United's transfer window. Simon Stone has tweeted this afternoon that Manchester United have stated they will not overpay on signings, even if it means missing out on signings. Also, we'll be talking about when we can expect a transfer, a bit of an update from Samuel Luckhurst in the Manchester Evening News there, and are Manchester United indicating that they're not going to be as active in the transfer window as maybe we thought they were going to be, especially with a hint from the Rangnick removal. So lots to get into. Hope you're all doing well this evening. Make sure you get your comments in. Welcome to the Members Club. Will NFFC, could be a Forest fan. John, thank you for the super chat. And we will get into your questions as normal. We're finally getting Josh King, says Ken. Oh, yeah. I mean, to be honest, Josh King wouldn't be a bad signing as it was a couple of years ago, which shows you how bad we are recently. So, let's hit the story with De Jong. There was a story coming in today or this afternoon from Spanish outlets that Manchester United... I've just lost my overlay. I hate it when I lose my overlay. Let me just start that up again. There was a story coming in from Spanish outlets this afternoon that Manchester United are... not Manchester United, Barcelona... There was something I wanted to use and I can't find it. Barcelona are... Aha, I've got it. The prank's sort of over now, but I'm still going to do it. There's a story in them parts there. There's a story in them parts in Barcelona there is that De Jong, Frenkie de Jong, is going to be a decision tomorrow from Barcelona. I sound like a farmer from Glamorgan, but I want to be a pirate. So, anyway, sod that. The joke's off. So, there's a story coming in tomorrow that there's a story coming from Spain that Barcelona will make a decision tomorrow about the future of Frenkie de Jong. They want Lewandowski, they want other signings, and they need to make a decision. Pirate Bridge might be back in a bit. They want to make a decision about how they're going to generate this money, and it's expected that this is going to happen. I was told in the next few days. Remember I said last week about a deadline for Frenkie de Jong? I expected that to be sort of Wednesday, Thursday, but apparently there's a meeting tomorrow between Barcelona chief executives or men in power or women in power or whatever. I don't know how Barcelona's power system works, but effectively they are having a meeting tomorrow according to reports, and a decision will be made then about Lewandowski. They really want Lewandowski. Effectively, Lewandowski has said that he wants to leave Bayern Munich. Barcelona really want him. They know they've got to move quickly, and to do that, they need to raise money. They don't have the money. So how are they going to raise that money? Thoughts on the Sky News segment that United are close watching? I don't know who that is, Keenan, sorry. So, yes. And also, then there was another story this evening that Manchester United are willing to pay £70 million for Frenkie de Jong as well. So you could get quite excited. You could start to think in the next 48 hours we'll get a decision on whether Frenkie de Jong's going to join us or not. There'll be plenty of false dawns and excitements and roller coasters in a transfer window. We're fully aware of that. God, on average, we wait 6 weeks from we're doing a deal to it being done. So there could be weeks and weeks ahead of this with Frenkie de Jong. But it certainly feels like what I said to Fabrizio this afternoon, really good video if you didn't see it, and what I said this morning. There's got to be a cut-off point here. And somebody, either Manchester United, Barcelona or Frenkie de Jong, have got to cut this off. Man United are not going to cut this off because they want him. Frenkie de Jong doesn't have the power to cut this off because if Barcelona say you're up for sale, you're up for sale. Barcelona are the ones who are going to end or start this transfer window with Manchester United and de Jong. And I think that ultimately they are going to decide to sell him because they've got to get the money from somewhere. So that's where we are with Frenkie de Jong, and fasten your seatbelts and get ready because I think that they are going to make a decision in the next day or so, and that decision will be that we need to raise money, and de Jong is the one that we can raise money for. Ultimately,
If you want to go on holiday and you want to buy a new car and you want to buy some new clothes and the bank says no, and you've got something on your driveway that somebody wants to pay you money for, and that money is there and you can take it, are you going to take it, or are you going to go, let's put it in the exchange and mart and try and sell it? I'm talking about a car. I'm not talking about your wife or anything like that. I mean, I genuinely am talking about selling a car or an asset, or maybe a piano on your drive. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. But my feeling with this has always been that Barcelona will end or start this transfer. And it looks like they're going to have to make a decision very soon, because Barcelona themselves are getting nervous, because they could, if they wait 2 weeks on what they're going to do with De Jong, they might not get Lewandowski. They need money and they need it quick. And the interesting thing for us is if they decide to sell De Jong, they've still got to do it quickly because they need to get money for Lewandowski. So let's see what happens in the next 24 to 48 hours on that. Kante to just play games. What was that? Kante to just play Prem games where the week rests at Manchester United. Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, we'll certainly have Fred, McTominay next season. Maybe that would be it. But, you know, any news on James Garner? He'll be going on pre-season training, and a decision will be making from there. Dan Parker, welcome to the members club. So that's where we are with De Jong. Transfer decision is close, and the decision will be made by Barcelona. Somebody said in the chat there, it's not on Barcelona, it's on De Jong. Mate, if I'm Frenkie de Jong and I'm at Barcelona, I'm living the dream. What a club to play for. Lovely climate. You're in the Champions League next year. The team's being built. Xavi likes you. You're very happy and you think, you know what? I'm where I want to be. If I get a phone call tomorrow saying, Frenkie, we want to sell you and we've got an offer for you, and you go, I'm not going. You are. It's as simple as that. So I think that, you know, ultimately Barcelona have got the power in this. Matthias says, I read today that Barcelona also can't afford Christensen from Chelsea and one other player. This is another factor to push the Frenkie deal. Yes, they obviously want this Christensen from Chelsea. They're not going to get these players if they don't generate some money. And unless they've got another way of generating money, and I understand Barcelona would want to keep Frenkie de Jong, by the way. I mean, that's why he'd be such a good signing for us, because we're getting a player they don't want to sell. They're doing it because of financial reasons. Mark, I'm so glad you're just normal human being who minds their business and brings us content. People getting shown up to date for their true colours, says James. I suspect to know what you're talking about, James. I've got to be honest. I personally don't have a problem with anybody. I don't believe in cancel culture or anything like that, but we do live in a world of opinion, and you know, the opinion is that, you know, I've expressed my opinion on it. I really don't want to see people getting cancelled or anything like that. And I don't think in this modern world it's very easy to cancel people for what they say. Midfielders has been the most important position to fill. 70 million on one of their very best. I believe he could also improve the other midfielders. Says was it Strugers FC? Welcome to the Members Club, Papa Krish. Right. I mean, look, on the price, if the price is £70 million for De Jong, do I think that's too much? Yes. I've always said Barcelona are desperate, so 60 million. I don't see why we've got to give Barcelona what they want. If Barcelona decide they want to sell because they're desperate for money, why pay top price? It's a double negative for me. If Barcelona decide tomorrow they're desperate for money, they need to sell De Jong, why would we give them 70? I'd say 60. So, you know, literally Simon Stone said this afternoon that Manchester United won't overpay. The question is, are you overpaying for Frenkie de Jong at 70 million? I would say you're not. I would say Frenkie de Jong's value is £70 million, but we're not in a normal situation. So if United paid £70 million for De Jong, I'm not going to be going, oh my God, I can't believe it. The bunch of prats. They're idiots. I'm not going to say that because Frenkie de Jong's a very good player, but I do think there's an opportunity there for Manchester United to get a good deal out of a club that's desperate for money if they decide to sell. Max, thank you for being a member for 12 months. So look, yeah, we'll see what happens with De Jong. I think the next 24 to 48 hours will be very interesting. Mr. Fricksky 99, thank you very much for joining the members club. So I want to talk to you about Timber, but I want to give you a bit of an exciting story. I think we're following, you know, quite a routine show here, and I want to pump it up a little bit. So this was exclusive. It wasn't from me. It wasn't from one of my sources. It was from somebody who is a valuable member of the United Stand social media team. They do loads of stuff for us, and they've got some really good contacts actually. So they messaged me about this afternoon and said, look, I've got it, shall we tweet it? And I went, look, I trust you, put it out. So the story is, exclusive, sources close to Reims Hugo Ekitike confirm that Manchester United are interested and talks have taken place. Hugo would like to play in England. Champions League football isn't a big factor in his decision, as he thinks that every game in the Premier League will be hard. Real Madrid, Man City and Bayern Munich also some of the clubs interested. So, look, it's not the first time we've been linked to this player, Ekitike. I don't know loads about him, but ultimately, he is a player that Manchester United are apparently in talks with. It's just another option, isn't it? I think he's 19. He's very, very highly regarded. He's a very young striker. I have nothing more to say than that, apart from the fact that's what we were told this afternoon. So we'll have to wait and see. Of course, warning, this is not my information. This is somebody else's information. And when we were talking about it this afternoon, we were both in agreement that this could be Manchester United's name being used to get him a move, because there are a lot of the other clubs involved. And maybe if United are interested, Newcastle pay a bit more, or Bayern Munich pay a little bit more, so you've got to be wary of that. But look, let's see what happens with that one. It would certainly be interesting, because I think with Nunez, you're paying a lot of money for a player that a lot of people want, and with a Ekitike, you're buying a younger up-and-coming player who, you know, maybe plays Thursday night, and Ronaldo plays Saturday, Sunday, and they share the role, and he's happy to do that for a year. You know, interesting. Let's wait and see. Do you think if United don't get a striker, then do you think Bruno is good enough to play in a false nine, as Ten Hag is a good manager to do that, says Cameron Senior? I don't really think that's likely to happen, to be honest with you. I do think we will buy a striker. In fact, I think the 7 a.m. video tomorrow, I'm going to do something, you know, specifically about the striker situation. So I need to do a little bit more digging on that. But I don't see a world where we don't buy a forward. And very, very quickly on that one, I suppose this is sort of relevant to Rangnick before I talk about Timber. You know, I agree with what I think it was Samuel Lucker said in the Manchester Evening News, actually, to be fair to him. He said Rangnick was the right guy in the wrong job. He's not a manager. He should have been brought in as a consultant from the start, or a director of football, or a support director of football, whatever. That's what Rangnick should have been. But when you look at the striking situation, and I'm not talking about the results and the team's selections or anything like that. Well, when Ralf Rangnick came into the club, it wouldn't have mattered if it was Ralf Rangnick or Jurgen Klopp. We were in a bloody mess. Toxic, dressing room issues, whatever you want to call it, right? The only player you could rely on was Ronaldo. 37 years of age, twice a week, Ronaldo. That's all you could rely on. Cavani went missing at Christmas. Greenwood got arrested and didn't play again. Martial refused to play and wanted to go on loan. And Rashford lost his form. Whoever the manager is, and whatever you think about Ralf Rangnick, and whoever the manager was, that's an unsurmountable problem that you cannot solve when the club says you're not buying anybody in January. Like, what was Rangnick supposed to do, and what was anybody supposed to do? Rashford's out of form. Cavani won't play. Martial wants to go on loan, doesn't want to stay. Greenwood gets arrested, can't play. And who else? I think that's it, isn't it? So you're just left with Ronaldo. What's that got to do with buying a striker in the summer? Well, just going back to that previous comment about using Bruno as a false nine, Cavani's gone. Rashford, for me, isn't a striker anyway, but will he get his form back? Greenwood, we may as well write that one off. It's not even worth talking about at the moment. Martial still wants to go. You're still left with Ronaldo. So we can't just use Bruno as a false nine. We're going to have to buy a striker. In the youth setup, I think Charlie McNeil and Joe Hugel have to, you know, they're not ready to play for Manchester United. I thought hopefully they will be at some point, but they are they even ready to go on loan to the Championship yet? So we're going to have to buy a forward, and I think that's the best way of explaining it. If you put yourself in Rangnick's shoes, comes into the job very excited, suddenly he's only got Ronaldo. And that's it. And if you're Erik Ten Hag and you come in, suddenly you've only got Ronaldo. So he's got to buy a striker, otherwise Ten Hag's going to be in the same position as Rangnick next season where he's trying to use a 37-year Ronaldo twice a week, and that just can't work. How about give Ronaldo the armband and let Pogba and the other undesirables come on, Mark? Seems reasonable, says Keenan. And Mark, when you hear that Man United want you, you listen. Whether they're in a position to listen to the future plan is something different, says Slow Sports News. The Pogba ship has sailed, but I'd be nice to have the Kante-Pogba partnership, says Grant. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The ship has probably sailed on both of those, to be honest with you. I don't think Pogba and Kante would be the Pogba and Kante of 4 years ago anyway, even if that did happen. But there you go. So we'll see what happens with the striking situation. On to Timber. I mean, look, I don't really have a lot to add about Timber because we've been talking about Timber all day, really, with Fabrizio and on the morning show. I think on the evening show, I would say that where we are with Timber is where we said we were 2 weeks ago. And last week, Manchester United really want Timber. It's very advanced from the United side. They've made that choice. They want him. Timber wants to come to Manchester United. Also wants to be respectful to Ajax. Ajax want to keep him, but Manchester United are in conversations with Ajax. That is where we are at. But as I tweeted this afternoon, some of this is knowledge. Some of this is opinion. Manchester United really want to get Timber because it's Ten Hag's priority. Fact, knowledge. Timber wants to come to Manchester United. Fact, knowledge. Ajax want to keep Timber. Fact, knowledge. Ajax want to get Timber on a new contract because his contract is up in 2 years. Fact, knowledge. Now, opinion. Timber won't sign that contract. I don't see why he would sign that contract. If he wants to leave, I don't think he won't sign the contract. If he doesn't sign the contract, Ajax have got a player who, if they force to stay, in a year's time, he's only got a year left on his contract. They won't get as much money as they'll get now. I think this price tag of around £35 to £40 million is what Ajax want to get the deal done this summer. Can United bring that price down? And I think that's where we're at with this. So I think this deal happens. The only way this deal doesn't happen is if Timber does actually decide he wants to sign a new contract. I don't think he does. I really don't. If he signs a new contract, it's over. But from United's side, they want him. Ten Hag wants him. Timber wants to come to United. Unless Ajax can persuade him to sign a contract where he stays until next summer and there's a release clause there, I don't see it happening. I feel United is setting Erik ten Hag up to wrestle back his power and to let him go next year and say the fans wanted him, says Tetrel. I do want to talk about that a little bit, actually, because I think you should always have your opinion. You should always be open-minded, I think, in relation to Erik ten Hag and whether he'll be successful or not. I was listening to the Manchester Evening News podcast today, and I think it was Luckhurst again was saying that he wants Ten Hag to do well, but he still thinks Pochettino was the better fit for the job. There's a lot of people who feel like that, who are going to be supportive of Ten Hag, but ultimately will say, I wanted Pochettino when it went wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like I'm saying I told you so. They wanted Pochettino, but they want Ten Hag to do well. It's going to be very interesting to see how it pans out because, as I said, I think the next 2 months are going to be really key there. There is definitely a desire for Manchester United to deliver Ten Hag what he wants. Whether he gets what he wants will be very, very telling. I can see Ten Hag playing Donny as the number 10, Sancho on the right and putting Bruno on the left like he did with Tadic. Thoughts? I would like that, Smurf. That was something I wanted Rangnick to do, and he sort of did do, didn't he, with Mata, certainly in the Brentford game. I wouldn't mind sticking Bruno to the right, Sancho to the left, Donny as the 10, 2 midfielders behind him, and Ronaldo in some games. I do think we're going to get the freedom next season to be a bit... Well, you're going to get... It wouldn't matter what was happening next season. You're going to get the freedom to try a few things. He's the new manager. With a team that's at rock bottom, he's going to have to try things. So, yeah, I don't have a massive problem with that. Hi, Mark. I think what you've done with the United Stand is incredible. I moved from the UK to Canada, and it's been great to feel part of the community, says Sam Hull. Well, thank you very much, Sam. I really appreciate that. So, yeah, look, that's where we are with Timber and De Jong and this Ekatike story. Just a quick update from 2 journalists. First one we're going to go with is a repetition, which I want to delve into a little bit more. Simon Stone, BBC journalist, very close to Manchester United, bit of a tap-in merchant. We don't mean that in a bad way. What we mean is he will not speculate. When he says something, you can pretty much guarantee that it's happening. And he is saying that I'm very proud of watching you grow, son, says Goldbridge Senior. Thank you very much. Manchester United won't overpay on transfers this summer. They're adamant they will not overpay. So this is from Simon Stone. What does that mean? Some people would say that's a warning that we're not going to spend much. That's United basically saying there's no value in the market. We're not going to spend much. I could jump on board with that. God, I could jump on board with that. I don't trust this board at all. No value in the market. We're not going to overpay, so we don't buy anybody. Yeah, I could understand why people would be negative about that. But actually, I don't think it is that. In fairness, I think it's probably the right decision. We don't have a big budget, and I think that's what Simon Stone said. United have got a limited budget and they won't overpay. And I think they have to be like that. That's exactly what I'm saying about De Jong. Why pay 70 million for a player that if they decide to sell, they're doing it because they're desperate for money? I would say 60 million and that's your deal. Unless another club starts getting into unless bloody PSG come in and say 65, you're probably going to offer 66, aren't you? Because you're going to go, well, look, it's a 2-horse race. We're going to have to pay now. But I agree with United not overpaying. I said it today. Darwin Núñez, £80 million. Forget about it. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in paying that. We've got to be smart, and we shouldn't be overpaying for people. The same with Timber. He's got 2 years left on his deal, and he's 20. A couple of years ago, we paid 35 million for Donny van der Beek, who's a midfielder who'd been in a Champions League semi-final and was 23. So why are we paying 40 million for a 20-year-old centre-back? You know what I mean? Who's got 2 years left on his deal. I think United need to box clever and say, look, we will give you money for Timber, and we're more than happy to put a few add-ons on, like if we win the Premier League, we'll give you another 5. But the offer's 30, and start from there. So, yeah, I think it's relevant to every player. De Jong, Timber, Núñez. I'd like us to buy all 3, but let's not overpay on them, because every little bit we save could be really useful. I mean, I don't know whether you saw it yesterday as well. There was a story yesterday from, I think it was a North East journalist, so close to Newcastle, saying that Newcastle really want to get a deal done for Dean Henderson for around 15 million. And I was like, 15 million? Bloody hell, if you listen to some United fans, Dean Henderson's the best goalkeeper since Gordon Banks. Have you seen their compilation clips? Bloody hell, he's got to be worth 30 million just for them. So, we need all these Dean Henderson fan club Twitter accounts. Can you start tagging Newcastle in? Because you tag us in enough to show us how good he is compared to De Gea. If he's off, you lot can finally have some use. You can double up his value here. 30 million, but 15 million for Dean Henderson. Come on, we've got to make sure we're getting the right price for sales, and we've got to make sure that we are not overpaying in the market. So I don't see that story from Simon Stone as a negative that we're not going to spend money. I see that as a story that we have a budget and we're not going to overpay because we won't get out the budget what we need. Sean Turner says, I think we're all going to be very disappointed this summer. The board have got Ten Hag in to improve the current rubbish. They're holding on to the second we got 2 years ago in empty stadiums. I'm going to come back to that, Sean. That is a concern of mine, but I'm going to come back to that. Craig Anderson, welcome to the Members Club. Oh, can you please subscribe to the channel, by the way, bottom right-hand corner. As you can see in the top right-hand corner, we're very close to 350,000, so please do subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. You're all very welcome, of course, and great community here, and it's a big summer transfer window ahead, so make sure you subscribe, bottom right-hand corner for that one. Ajax want to keep Jurrien Timber at the club. They want to extend his contract, which currently lasts until 2024. Manchester United want him. It's now about what the player himself wants, up to the player. This is coming from Mike Verwell, who is the journalist very close to Manchester United. Let me just send a message here to say he won't sign a contract like you predicted. So yeah, I mean, it's funny while we're live. I mean, look, Mike Verwey or Verwell, or however you pronounce it, in the Netherlands, is very close to Ajax, and he gets very good information. And it's funny that we've been live for 20 minutes, and that's just come out in the last minute that effectively Ajax want him to sign a new contract, United want to sign him, and it's up to the player. So this is why we're very confident this deal's going to happen. 80% confident. There's still 20%. And as I said, the only way this deal won't happen is if Timber signs a contract. Because if he refuses to sign a and I would actually put it down to that now. If he signs a contract, he's staying. If he doesn't sign a contract and doesn't want to sign a contract, Ajax will just say, look, we'll sell you now. Because that's Ajax are not Dortmund. Ajax are not like that. Ajax are a club that is a fantastically well-run club. I remember them winning the European Cup. They're a conveyor belt of talent for decades. Amazing football club, but also a very realistic football club who knows their place in the modern European world. The Eredivisie is not a competitive league comparable to Serie A or the Premier League or La Liga. So they know they can't hold on to players and say, no, we're not selling you, because all they can ever offer is, games against PSV and Feyenoord and FC20. So look, they'll be realistic if Timber decides he wants to go. Mark, I used the United Stand code for my Manscaped purchase. Do you know how many times the United Stand code was used to make a purchase? I don't know, Emir. Got no idea. I don't know about that. So, yeah, we might get some more news about Timber while we're live. But, yeah, going back to what Simon Stone said, we have a limited budget, and I think we need to box clever in relation to that. So, let's see what happens with that. And then the second thing I was going to say, which was a bit of a throwaway comment in a podcast this afternoon with Samuel Luckhurst. He was asked a question about when he thinks United will make a signing. Now, he does have connections with the club. And he said, when I spoke to somebody about this close to the club last week, they indicated that they don't expect to do any business before the official transfer window opens on June the 10th, which means we're a week and a half away from United doing any business, if that is what was said to Samuel Luckhurst last week. So I just wanted to bring that in because that's not that far away, the 10th of June. But I don't think that... It's a good point, and the reason I wanted to bring it up is because some people will go, oh my God, this is going to be the worst transfer window ever. We need to be signing people now. We're not even going to sign the first one till June the 10th, and that will take a few more days, and then everyone will be back in training, and then we'll be on tour, and we won't sign anyone, and then the season will start, and we'll be all over the place. Remember, there are three stages to a transfer. There is deal agreed with the player, there is deal done with the club, and then there is official announcement. June the 10th might be when we officially announce a player. Doesn't mean we can't have deal done and deal agreed. I would say that with Timber, you could argue, as we said last week, that deal agreed is already there. That's the initial conversation with the player to discuss terms and willingness to come to United, which we know that Timber is willingness to do. Deal done is when you agree a fee with Ajax. An official deal is when it gets announced. So we may well know we've got a transfer done before June the 10th, is what I'm saying. City owners have confirmed that they will sign more players beyond the two they have already signed, and here we are being our old self and doing nothing at the speed required for transfers, says Mojo. Well, I think Mojo makes a good point as well, because as much as we want to see us do business, I can't guarantee, and you can't guarantee, that Newcastle will eclipse us, Villa will eclipse us, Chelsea will eclipse us, Man City will eclipse us, and Liverpool will eclipse us. They could all have a more active transfer window than us, which this gets forgotten. We can say from a standing start that if we get Timber, De Jong and Nunez, we're in a better position, and we are in a better position. But remember, nobody else is standing still. You've still got to compare your window to everybody else's. And we're miles behind everybody else. And even if we make 3 good signings, if Newcastle make 3 good signings, and Man City make 3 good signings, and Liverpool make 3 good signings, we might still be miles behind because everyone's done the same thing. You've got to do better than everybody else. And that's why United need to buy 6 and sell 12. Why is there criticism of De Gea being player of the year due to him conceding 57 goals in his distribution? Won't we have conceded more if not for him too? Has he won player of the year yet, Salah Ahmed? Amir Khan and Ben Jenkins, thank you much, and welcome to the members club. Why don't Man United go for Dembele? 25 incoming to the end of contract. I don't think we can get him, Radical. I think that he will probably go to PSG or Liverpool. I don't think Dembele would want to come to Manchester United. I think we might try, but we would be very low down because there'll be bigger clubs than us. I mean, not bigger clubs. There'll be better clubs than us looking at him. Sakin says, Grandpa used to say, wrestler who gets pinned on the same move twice isn't a wrestler. Our board reminds me of that every time I think we are changing. Thank you for the super chat, Sakin. 120 million for Nunez and De Jong is good. We need a midfielder and a striker for sure. And delayed... Sancho must start playing, says Milan. I think Sancho will have a big part to play with Manchester United. Okay, so just a little bit more on the Ajax situation. There is information now starting to filter through that Timber won't sign a new deal, which is what I would predict would be the case anyway. But yeah, just a couple of messages that I've had there that apparently Romano might have said it anyway, but the reality, I don't think he said it on our show. But yeah, the story is that basically Timber has to decide his future. Ajax want him to stay, Manchester United want to sign him, and the indication is that Timber will not sign a contract, which will therefore lead to Ajax selling him. So expect that deal to happen soon. Welcome to the members. Sorry, Michael Friedman's just gifted a membership. Thank you, Michael, and whoever got it, well done. You don't send your representative to Manchester United offices if your intentions are to sign a new deal, says Lars. Well, no, you're right, Lars. You're right, Lars, but to play devil's advocate, I'm already 80% sure that we're going to get Timber, and I have been for 2 weeks. So, you know, obviously I'm well informed and quite confident, but also to play the other side, you know, if you put a house on the market, you don't take your first offer, do you? If you've got 4 other offers, you know, you're going to assess them. So I'm sure he'll speak to Ajax and see what's on offer there, but I don't think Ajax will be able to offer him the wages we are. So why sign a new contract at Ajax? You know, I was very impressed with my Manscaped purchase using your discount code, and I'm proud to announce it no longer looks like a toddler's thumb. Okay, affiliation. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. And yes, look, one thing I really do want to talk about is that, and I think that it sort of fits in with Ten Hag and Rangnick and the wider transfer window. I do read a lot, and I think that there are a lot of people at the moment who are sort of concerned about what this transfer window is going to be, and I think it's confusing because there are lots of things you could be concerned about, but there are also reasons to be positive. Absolutely nailed on. United want this to be different. They want this transfer window to be different. They want to perform differently. What it will come down to is competence. You know, a willingness to do well. I suppose you could compare it to McFred and Real Madrid's midfield. There's no doubt that McFred want to do well, and there's no doubt that Modric, Casemiro and Kroos want to do well. The chances of McFred doing well are way less than those 3 doing well because they are good. They want to do well and they're very good at their job. McFred want to do well, they're not as good. So a willingness of United's board to do well isn't enough for us to do well. If these people we have, like the Fletchers and the Murtas and the Arnolds, are not actually very good at their job, their willingness won't matter. So they're under the microscope, they are, and that is a concern, because if you're like me and you don't trust them and you want them to do well but you don't trust them, I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to have a great transfer window because I don't necessarily trust those people yet because they haven't earned that trust. So I understand that concern. I'm not concerned about the budget, by the way. I don't think we are operating on a low budget. I think we have got somewhere between 125 and 175 dependent on sales, which is what I think is a reasonable transfer market valuation. I do have concerns about the volume of transfer activity we're going to do, and I think that that's quite simply based on a few throwaway comments, hopefully. I didn't like Ten Hag talking about us finished second a year ago and the potential of this team, because if he actually watched that team, it hasn't got potential. It can't play the style of football that Ten Hag wants to play. It's a very basic set of footballers who like to play a very basic style of football that got figured out last year, and Ollie lost his job because of it. And also crowds in the ground and Liverpool and Chelsea being stronger. We struggle to play football. The stats are there. Ten Hag will know this though. Ten Hag's not walked into this club and gone, oh, we finished second a year ago, they must be good. He'll have looked at the stats. He's an obsessive, analytical manager. He'll have looked at how United perform. There are stat sites out there where you can literally type Manchester United versus Ajax and it will do the work for you, whether it's pressing ability. I mean, I did a video on it. There's on the members page. But I'm sure a lot of the members have watched it. Man United last season compared to Ajax last season. And you can look at pressing ability, passes, successful passes forward as a team. Erik Ten Hag will have looked at that. So as much as it's concerning that he said United finished second a year ago, there's a lot of potential there. the balance of probabilities is that he's probably saying that to just make the players feel better, because the truth wouldn't. If he came in and said this team's a load of rubbish, it's going to take me ages to sort it out, that's not the best start, is it? You've got to start on a positive, and he will 100% know that this team is not capable of playing the way he wants it to. He's got to try and find a way for it to do it, but he's also got to add players in. So I'm not negative about this transfer window. I understand the concerns. There is always the reality that this board and the Glazers might say there's not a lot of money to spend and we won't spend, but I don't think that will happen because it doesn't fit in with how we've worked. You can't with one hand say the Glazers are a load of crap and they don't spend money and, sort of tarnish them with the past and then ignore the fact that every year we've been in the Europa League we have spent a lot of money, and every year we've brought a new manager and we've spent a lot of money. So I do think we've got money to spend. It's how, for me, the most important thing is it's how competently we spend that money. When I look at United over the last 9 years, I think there's an accumulation of blame. Certainly Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer have to take on some of the blame because they sanctioned a lot of the signings and a lot of them didn't work. Mourinho, without doubt, is the best manager we've had since Sir Alex, but he did sign Lukaku and others that were just bad signings. But on top of that, you've got recruitment, which has been a joke. Scouting hasn't been much better. Ed Woodward was a bad CEO. Matt Judge was a bad negotiator. And overarchingly, the Glazers are in charge of this football club. So there's lots of areas to put the blame on at Manchester United. And you can't just put it on one person. It's been Gary Neville said it well a few years ago. That club is rotten from top to bottom. From training ground to boardroom to owners, they've all accumulated this 9 years of failure that's put us where we are. But I don't necessarily think that we're definitely going to fail because we failed in the past. The most important thing that we must change, and the sad thing for me about Rangnick, and I'll come into it now, KB says hopefully McTominay and Fred will be better under Ten Hag since he wants us playing higher up the field. Hello Mark, what are your thoughts on Rooney criticising Ronaldo and being at our squad? Says Mutsum. I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Mark, as you said, we won't win the league next season. Surely that's the perfect time to bed Garner in, potentially Remy. And it's my birthday, Mark. Mind singing me a birthday song? Hope we can get the right transfer business done early, says Joshua. Well, I'm not singing happy birthday. I'm not a performing seal, but I will say happy birthday, Joshua, and I hope that you have a good one. But I suppose my biggest concern about Manchester United of where it could go wrong, because we're all talking about where it can go right, and I hope we're all going to be right. The strategy, the plan, Ten Hag will have a plan. Where this will go wrong, if it's going to go wrong, I envisage it going wrong where it went wrong for Van Gaal and where it went wrong for Mourinho. Mourinho wanted certain things and they didn't happen, and he ended up with different things or nothing. Van Gaal wanted certain things. He wanted Muller. He didn't get him. So the problem that Van Gaal and Mourinho definitely had is they didn't get the things they wanted and they weren't allowed to get rid of the things they wanted to get rid of. They ended up having to keep the things they wanted to get rid of, and they ended up with third and fourth options. Incompetence. And I suppose there's two words that I would use that concern me about United going forward. Incompetence and compliance, I suppose, because incompetence has been the problem running through the club for 9 years, from top to bottom, as we said, and incompetence in the transfer market is, I want timber, and you end up spending 60 million quid on, I don't know, the next Harry Maguire, panicking, I've got to get the deal done. Compliance is removing somebody who is incompliant like Rangnick, or not appointing somebody who's incompliant like Conte. And what I mean by that is Manchester United, like a chain of command that is basically a puppet. Solskjaer was a puppet. Mourinho went against that and was out of the job. Van Gaal did to a certain extent. United don't like these mavericks. They don't like these outspoken people who say what the problem is. Because when you walk into a problem, what Rangnick did on the pitch wasn't great, but what he did in assessing the problems at the club was spot on. When you walk into an organisation or a team or a building or an office block or whatever, and your job is to try and make it better, you don't sweep things under the carpet. You expose it and say, this is why we're failing, which is what Rangnick did. But Man United like to sweep it under the carpet. They don't like people talking out. They want to control people because we are a corporate business. And a corporate business doesn't want you to know about things going wrong because that can impact on share prices and brand awareness and brand positivity. And Manchester United is a brand. So Manchester United will not have enjoyed Rangnick, and they will not have enjoyed recruiting Conte. We as fans would, because they would expose the problems and fix them publicly. How Ten Hag is going to act is going to be really interesting. Publicly, I don't think he'll say very much. Does that really matter? It's nice for us as fans to be communicated with, but it doesn't really matter if behind closed doors things are being done. This is my only concern about United. For 9 years since Sir Alex Ferguson left, that club has been about sweeping trouble under the carpet and pretending everything's alright and manipulating everybody so that everyone falls into line. Is Ten Hag falling into line, or is he going to be listened to? Is what he wants going to be delivered, or will incompetence lead to bad transfer windows? That's my concern. I don't have a problem with Ten Hag. If he fails, he fails. I won't listen to people who say I told you he'd fail, because I don't really hear them now. Where's anybody daring to stand up now and say Ten Hag's going to fail, he's not good enough? They'll do it in a year or two if he fails, but where are they now? Show us the tweets now so we can screenshot them and say you were right or you were wrong, but they won't. We all know Ten Hag could fail in a year or two. Absolutely he could do. But if he's going to fail, he's going to fail. But if he's going to fail, I want him to fail because he failed. I don't want him to fail because he wasn't provided for. And that is why a lot of United managers have failed, because they weren't given what they wanted. And that is my concern. This United at the moment is absolutely determined to put out the message that it's going to take time and it's a new United. Is it a new United? Or have we still got people in that club who are incompetent and compliant? Incompetent in doing their job and not getting what is needed in. Compliant in, do as I say, not what you want. And that's where we're going to stand and fall. And that's where we're going to find out whether we're a new football club or not. And ultimately, the first step in that is the next 2 months and what we do. Recently, when Klopp was interviewed, he asked the interviewer on where was the next Champions League final and then told him to book the tickets. Liverpool were there, he says Barron. Liverpool are a good team, mate. I'm very glad they didn't win the quadruple. I'm very glad they didn't win the league or the Champions League, but he's probably right. I don't think you can go far wrong than predict Liverpool or Man City to win the Champions League again next year. I know they didn't win it this year, but they'll be there or thereabouts. I don't really see a team that's close to them. What Real Madrid was amazing. If they could do it again, it'd be nice, because we're not in it. Hi Mark, if we got Timber, Kante, De Jong and Nunez, would you see it as a successful window, and where do you think that would see us finish? You know what, Carl, that's a great point, because I actually like that. I know it's fantasy and all that lot, but I don't mind looking at people's realistic transfer windows. I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility. So you're talking maybe 35 for Timber, maybe 20 for Kante, that's 55, maybe 60 for De Jong, that's 115, which leaves you with about another 60 for Nunez. Maybe you could do that. I'd be happy with that as a first transfer window. Timber, Kante, De Jong and Nunez. I think it would be a big improvement. 4 players would be fine. I'd like 5 or 6, but 4 would be fine. I wouldn't criticise it. I think it hits the areas you need to. Centre-back, 2 midfielders and a forward. Where do I think it would finish? I mean, I would be happy with that window. I don't think we're going to be ecstatic with any window, because we're not going to sell 10 players. We're not going to sell 15 players and buy 9. That would make me ecstatic. So there's no window that's going to make me ecstatic. It is a rebuild. And as a rebuild summer goes, I'd be happy with that. Where do I think we'd finish next season with that? Top 4 and maybe win the Europa League, which is what I want to see happening. So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I don't think that one will happen. If you're asking me, can you call Rebecca a prat, mate? Says Damien. Apparently you're a prat, Rebecca, from Damien. Have you heard anything about Kone? He's 21 years old from Mönchengladbach and gives me Basuma Camavinga vibes. We have been linked and he's a great partner for Frenkie de Jong, says Sebastian. We did speak about him last week. I don't really know a lot about Kone from Mönchengladbach. I suppose the only thing I would say is that you'd think anybody from the Bundesliga is something to do with Rangnick, and therefore we wouldn't go for them. But to be fair, Ten Hag has got a really good understanding of the Bundesliga. I would say after the Eredivisie, Ten Hag's biggest knowledge is the Bundesliga. So we may well look at some Bundesliga players. If I was to predict our transfer window, and this is completely speculation, all right, one or two I think we will definitely get from information, but I would predict our transfer window, if I had to guess, would be Timber, De Jong, I don't know. You know what? Beyond those two, it's very difficult. I don't believe Nunez is as advanced as some people say. Look, I'm going to do a video on the forward options because I don't want to sort of ruin that by who I think we are going to get. And the second midfielder is very difficult. Even if we go for a second midfielder, you could effectively replace Pogba with De Jong and just stick with what you've got, and then use Garner as Matic's replacement. So, we might do it on the cheap. But as I said this morning, tell me Man United's transfer window if De Jong refuses us and we don't get Nunez. Where do you go? Where do you go? De Jong, Timber and Nunez is not enough for me. I think we need 4 signings. But imagine if you didn't get De Jong and Nunez, and you bought Timber, Kante and Richarlison. Suddenly, 3 players ain't enough, and that's not the 3 players I want anyway. So this is the danger. This is the competence. This is the structure. I'm talking about the players. Manchester United, they need to be signing Nunez, De Jong, Frenkie de Jong. I look at that United side, and I don't think Kante and Richarlison. You're taking the piss out of me on Twitter. He's not the right player. So look, yeah, it's all going to come down to competence. If I'm Erik Ten Hag and I hand in a piece of paper saying that's my centre back, that's my 2 midfielders, and that's my striker, and they're my number 1, and then you go on holiday and you come back and you turn up for training and you're like, why is Ruben Neves running around on my training pitch with Richarlison? That's not what I asked for. They were in the bottom 4. Well, that's all we could do. Incompetence. So Ten Hag can have the list he wants. I think this is why he's pushing for De Jong, because I think Ten Hag is probably thinking, I've looked at the last 9 years at United. I don't trust this board to get me what I want. I'm going to try and, I guarantee you Ten Hag's probably acting like a director of football. It's not Ten Hag's job to get the players to come to United, but I guarantee he will be, because he knows if he doesn't get the first choice players, his chances of success are less. We're behind in transfers. Same United. The upper echelons of the club need to pull their finger out and start getting the deals done, says Cotton. We may well be behind, Cotton. Remember back at the end of March in the international break, and there was quite a bit of frustration that we hadn't sorted a manager out yet. And I remember talking about it at the time, and we were saying, look, the reason we need the manager in now is because we need longer to sort the signings out. We might well be playing catch-up. If you think about it, Ten Hag probably last couple of weeks has been talking about his signings. If that's now been finalised, United will only just be starting to go out and get things done. But with Ten Hag, this is one of the reasons I was always really confident we were going to get Timber, because he's not reliant on United's recruitment. He's managed that player, and he can literally say to him, I want you to come to United, tell your agent, let's get it done. He can pick the phone up to Frenkie de Jong because he's managed him before and say, I want you to come to Man United. So if we get de Jong and Timber, that's down to Ten Hag. It's very much like what happened with Mourinho. The reason we got Pogba and Mkhitaryan and Zlatan was because of Mourinho's relationship with Mino Raiola. So that wasn't because United's... we very rarely have a manager that comes into the club and says, these are the players I want, I'm off on holiday, don't get me involved. Because United probably wouldn't have got those players previously. When we've brought good players in, it's been because of the manager. It's no coincidence to me that Mourinho came into the club and we were in the Europa League and he got Pogba, Zlatan and Mkhitaryan, all clients of Mino Raiola, all because of Mourinho's contacts. The same thing could happen again. We could get De Jong and Timber, not because United are great at negotiating, but because Ten Hag's got the connections. In my opinion, I think that next season we give Fred a chance. I think he's a player and has had massive improvement. Well, he was one of the positives under Rangnick. Why? Yeah, I'd agree. Mohammed, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for joining. Keep your questions coming in. Thanks everyone who's tuning, by the way. Remember, we're live every night at 8 o'clock, every morning at 10 o'clock, and also 2 o'clock as well. And any breaking news will go live, so make sure you subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I should say any legitimate breaking news. I'm not going to go live because... we're linked to bloody Harry Winks or something like that. Perisic is off to Tottenham. Thought he would have been a good signing for us a few seasons ago, says Paul. Yeah, I wouldn't want Perisic now. I think it's an interesting signing by Spurs. I do like the player, but I really, talking about Mourinho, I was gutted when we didn't get Perisic. I mean, how many years ago was that? 5? I remember doing videos about Perisic saying, you don't watch Serie A, he'd be bloody brilliant at United. He puts crosses in, he's skillful. I think he'd be a really good player for us. And, it didn't happen because United wouldn't pay 45 million. They'd only offer 40. And, look, I'm not saying we'd have won the league, but I think we'd have been a very different side if Mourinho had got Perisic. Mark, with the luck we have with this board, we'll end up signing Isco and Suarez, says Leo J. Will there be a surprise? Will there be a surprise signing? Tielemans has gone quiet, says Rory. Well, there's a surprise. I mean, imagine if we did. Could I get a shout out for Sidhu, says Taran. There you go. Tielemans is an interesting player. I mean, I do think that Tielemans in a Ten Hag system could work, but I've not heard that we're in for Tielemans. Fred under Eric Ten Hag, I think he will like him. I don't want to talk about the team next season because we don't know who we're going to sign. But I don't see... logically, thankfully, it's impossible that we'll see Fred and McTominay start if we buy De Jong. Because how do you play Fred, McTominay and De Jong? You don't. One of them has to be benched, which is an improvement. If they both get benched, it's a massive improvement. So I would always prefer Fred over McTominay anyway, because I think in a high press Fred would suit a lot better. Fred causes the most damage when he's near his own box. Fred's a better player when he's pressing the opposition box, so that's the way that Ten Hag wants to play. I could see him using Fred and De Jong next year. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced we'll buy 2 midfielders. I'll say it now. I'm not convinced we're going to buy 2 midfielders. I think that the only 2 midfielders I feel that we're really in for at the moment are De Jong and Kante. Neves is the backup for De Jong. I think a lot rests on De Jong. I mean, this is why when people say, we shouldn't be begging him, I'm like, if we don't get him, what are we going to get? Like, he is the sort of player that could play in a Man City or Liverpool title-winning side. If you bring De Jong in, you're bringing a player in that is instantly one of the best players in the team. And there's not a lot of risk attached to that. Mark, can you do an Alan Keegan impression? Nope. Like, literally, I can't do it, H. It would be a waste of time. I don't want Tolisso. I know he was mentioned by Romano today. I don't want Tolisso. Do I think Ten Hag might want him? I've not heard anything. Ten Hag's got good connections with Bayern Munich. He was employed there. I don't think we will go for him. I don't think we'll go for him. I mean, look, Lema was a good deal. 24 years of age, 1 year left on his deal, £20 million. He's going to Bayern Munich. I mean, you know what? Bayern Munich. This is the United stand. Bayern Munich, yeah? Domination of the German league. Domination. This would be like Man United buying Foden, Mason Mount and Salah. You'd never be able to do that. Or Man City walking into United and buying Sancho, going to Liverpool and getting Salah, and going to Chelsea and getting Mount. In the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich do that. They'll go to second, third and fourth and take their best player. And they make the most money. So no wonder they've won the last 50 titles in a row. But on a serious note, they've got total monopoly of the Bundesliga, yeah? And they're loaded. On top of that, on top of that, a massive advantage that they have in their own league. They can get people like Lamer for 20 million with 1 year left on his deal. They can go to Ajax and get their right back and Gravenberg for next to nothing. They're going to get Lamer, the right back from Ajax, and Gravenberg for less than 50 million quid. The business they do is unbelievable. And you know, I don't know whether United can do that. And I think, you know, that's another thing that annoys me about us losing Rangnick, is I think that that's exactly the sort of recruitment specialist Rangnick was. Not only was he good at getting hold of players, I think he was also good at getting them at value. Look at the 3 players he wanted United to bring in January. Look at the 3 recommendations that Rangnick had in January. Kamara, who would have been about 5 million. Sakaria, who was 5 million. And Alvarez, who was, what did Man City pay for him? 20? So not only did he recommend 3 players that he thought were good enough to improve us, but they were also cheap as well. I really wish we'd kept Rangnick for one summer. Look, ultimately that's gone. What do you think of Nkunku right wing when Ronnie leaves? He goes to striker and then Anthony right wing, says Dylan. I don't think Nkunku will happen now, because I think that losing Rangnick means we lose any deal we can do with any Leipzig player now. Will Rangnick leaving screw a few of the Bundesliga potential signings? Nkunku, yeah, Rory C, I think 100%. 100% on that one. Yeah, definitely. And look, if I'm absolutely honest with you, we're yet to see. But do I think we could have had a better summer with Rangnick? Yes. I personally think we should have used Rangnick for one summer, seen how it had gone, and then made a decision. I think, as Fabrizio said this afternoon, United did not have the same vision as Ralf Rangnick. Before Ten Hag came in, they didn't have the same vision. They didn't like the players he recommended in January. They didn't want to buy the players he recommended in January. And they didn't like and agree with the fact that we needed to sign 10 players. So they were on the different path. They didn't agree with it. So he was jettisoned out of the club. What's Erik Ten Hag's plan? We're going to find out. Should United look to Japanese or USA players, says Keel? I don't really care. I'm not really bothered. You know, the world's a small place in football now. You've got people like Son from South Korea. He's one of the best players in the Premier League. You've got people like Alphonso Davies, Canadian, fantastic left back. And I don't really care where we get players from. I loved having Chicharito at the club. I think it's great when you bring players in from Ji-sung Park as well. It's I don't really care where a player comes from. I don't think anybody does. If they're good enough to play for United, in some ways it's very exciting when you get a player from the other side of the world who's well scouted. And I'd like United to do that, but I don't know whether we will. James, well, I think what United do when they panic is they revert to the Premier League. So if we don't get Nunez, I can see us going for a Premier League striker. If we don't get De Jong, I can see us going for a Premier League midfielder. That's been United's last 9 years. We panic and we buy big in the Premier League. James, welcome to Members Club. And David Page says, what does David Page say? Kunal, thank you very much. Is Fred, Donny and Van de Jong a possibility next season, says Salah? I certainly think it might work. I certainly think that, we will be playing we will be playing Fulham and Bournemouth and Forest and Leeds and, other beatable teams next season at home. Why not try that? I think if he gets enough midfielders in, he can have a bit of fluidity, especially with us playing Thursday, Sunday. Anyway, look, hi Mark, would you take Tolisso? No, Josh, I wouldn't. I've spoken about that. I wouldn't. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for tuning in. Got a good video coming up for you early in the morning at 7 o'clock tomorrow. And obviously I'll be back at 10 o'clock. Could be a big day tomorrow. Might get something out of Barcelona and what they're going to do with De Jong. And let's see what happens with the Timber thing, because I think that might develop quite quickly as well. Thanks everyone for watching. We've got some good information at the moment, and let's hope that it keeps coming in. Take care everyone. Smash a like. Make sure you subscribe.